The year was 4025, and Earth had not seen war in 2,000 years. Rear Admiral Han Sol Kim stood on the bridge of the defense cruiser Quiet Harbor, watching the stars drift past like distant candles. His uniform was crisp and decorated with medals he had earned through ceremonial parades and disaster relief operations. In his 45 years of life, he had never fired a weapon at another living being. No one had. War was something from history books, a primitive behavior humanity had evolved beyond. The bridge was quiet. His crew moved through their routines with the calm precision of people who knew nothing would ever go wrong. Weapons Officer Da Yun Choi, barely 26 years old, sat at her console playing a game on her personal display. She was supposed to monitor targeting systems, but those systems had not been active in her entire career. They were relics, kept functional only because regulations said so. "Admiral," called out Captain Tae-Yang Park from his station. The 52-year-old man was the ship's historian and military attaché. Most people thought his job was pointless. What use was studying war when peace was eternal? "We're receiving unusual readings from the edge of the Taejin 7 system." Han Sol walked over, more curious than concerned. Taejin 7 was a colony world with 3 billion people. It was a peaceful farming community that exported grain to 12 other systems. "Nothing exciting ever happened there." "What kind of readings?" Han Sol asked. "Slip space distortions, multiple signatures, at least 27 distinct vessels." Park's voice had an edge to it that Han Sol had never heard before. "They're not human designs." The bridge went silent. Every crew member looked up from their stations. For a moment, no one moved. Then the communications officer spoke in a whisper. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission. It's using mathematical sequences. Universal first contact protocols." Han Sol felt his heart beating faster. This was it. Humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. He had dreamed of this moment as a child. Every human had. They were finally not alone in the universe. "Put it through," he said, smiling. "And someone contact Dr. Bora Lee at the Dandelion Research Station. She'll want to hear this." The transmission came through as text, decoded by their computers within seconds. Han Sol read it once, then read it again, certain he had misunderstood. "Submit or be harvested," 4 words. That was the entire message. "There must be a translation error," Han Sol said, but his voice sounded uncertain even to himself. Captain Park was already working at his console, pulling up files that Han Sol had never seen him access before. "Admiral, I need to show you something. These are records from the last war, the final conflict humanity fought in 2025. I've been studying the patterns of—" "Captain, this isn't the time for your historical theories," Han Sol interrupted. "We need to establish proper communication. This is clearly a misunderstanding." Across the solar system, on the orbital research station Dandelion, Dr. Bora Lee was having the same thought. The 38-year-old xenobiologist had spent her entire career preparing for first contact. She had written 3 books on the subject. She knew every protocol, every carefully prepared greeting, every diplomatic phrase designed to ensure peaceful relations. "Submit or be harvested" was not in any of her books. "Run the translation again," she told her team. "Check for linguistic drift, cultural context markers, anything that might explain the hostile phrasing." Her assistant looked up, his face pale. "Doctor, we've run it 17 times. The translation is accurate. They're demanding our surrender." Dr. Lee sat down heavily. Around her, the research station continued its peaceful operations. Through the windows she could see Earth below, a blue and green jewel covered in gardens and forests. The scars of the old world, the burned cities, the poisoned lands, the mass graves had all been healed. Earth was paradise now, and someone had just threatened it. On Earth itself, in the global government complex, Foreign Minister Jae Hwan Moon received the news while having tea. The 61-year-old diplomat had built his career on the open arms doctrine. Humanity's policy was simple: greet all beings with friendship, assume the best intentions, and work toward mutual understanding. "This changes nothing," he told his staff firmly. "We will respond with peace. We will show them that humanity has evolved beyond violence. They'll understand." He drafted a response himself. It was beautiful. It spoke of humanity's journey from war to peace, of the 2,000 years of harmony, of the hope that all intelligent species could coexist. He explained that humanity would never submit to threats, but would gladly meet as equals to discuss peaceful cooperation. The response was sent. 27 alien ships received it. And then, without any further warning, one of those ships fired. The target was a civilian transport vessel leaving Tianjin 7. It was called Morning Hope. It carried 3,000 colonists, farmers, teachers, children heading to visit family on other worlds. The ship had no weapons. It had no shields beyond basic radiation protection. It was simply a bus traveling through space. The alien weapon hit it perfectly. The Morning Hope vanished in a flash of light and debris. 3,000 people died in less than a second. Admiral Han Sol watched it happen on his displays. He stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. Around him, his crew sat in shocked silence. Weapons Officer Choi had dropped her game display. It clattered on the floor, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet. "Sir?" she whispered. "What do we do?" Han Sol did not know. His training had covered natural disasters, equipment failures, medical emergencies. But not this. Never this. War was extinct. Everyone knew that. Captain Park stood up. His voice was steady, though his hands shook. "Admiral, those ships are moving toward Tianjin 7. If their stated intent is to harvest the population, we must assume they plan to attack the colony." "We should contact Earth," someone said. "Get orders. There are protocols for this." "There are no protocols for this," Choi snapped. Her voice cracked. "They just killed 3,000 people." Han Sol made himself breathe, made himself think. He was an admiral. He commanded a warship. That meant something, even if he had never believed he would need it to mean anything. "Send a message to Earth. Request immediate instructions." Then, he paused. The next words felt strange in his mouth. "Then ready all weapon systems. And someone find me every piece of military historical data we have. Everything from before the peace era." Park was already moving. "I've been preparing such a database for years, sir. Everyone said I was crazy." "You might be the sanest person on this ship," Han Sol replied. The orders from Earth came back within an hour. They were clear: defensive posture only. Do not escalate. Attempt continued diplomatic contact. And under no circumstances engage the alien vessels unless directly fired upon. Han Sol read them and felt something break inside his chest. They wanted him to watch, to wait, to hope that words would stop whatever was about to happen. On Tianjin 7, the alien ships entered orbit. They ignored all communication attempts. They ignored the desperate pleas from the colony governor. They simply began their work. Later, survivors would describe it in broken voices, beams of light that pulled people into the sky, machines that sorted living beings like harvest grain, the sound of billions screaming across every communication channel. The aliens were not interested in conquest. They were not interested in resources or territory. They wanted the people themselves. Admiral Han Sol sat in his command chair and watched the population of Tianjin 7 disappear. His orders were clear: defensive posture only. Do not engage. He watched for 3 hours, then he stood up. Captain Park looked at him, and Han Sol saw understanding in the older man's eyes. Some things were more important than orders. Some things were more important than peace. "Weapons Officer Choi," Han Sol said quietly. "Load all weapons. Ready every missile we have. Charge the main cannons." "Sir?" Choi's voice trembled. "Earth's orders are going to get everyone on that planet killed." Han Sol turned to face his crew. Young faces, all of them. People who had never known violence. "I won't lie to you. Our ship is one vessel. They have 27. We are probably going to die. But I will not sit here and watch this happen." Park spoke up. "The ancient military codes had a phrase for this, Admiral. Death before dishonor." "I don't care about honor," Han Sol replied. "I care about those 3 billion people down there. Who's with me?" Every hand on the bridge went up. Even Choi, who was crying, raised her hand high. "Then let's go remind the galaxy what humanity used to be," Han Sol said. "Helm, set course for the alien fleet. Maximum speed." The quiet harbor turned toward the enemy. Its weapons came online for the first time in 2,000 years. And Admiral Han Sol Kim, who had never fired a shot in anger, who had spent his life in peaceful service, felt something ancient wake up inside him. It felt like fury. It felt like purpose. It felt like humanity remembering what it had tried so hard to forget. The ship accelerated toward impossible odds. Behind them, Earth sent frantic messages ordering them to stand down. Han Sol ignored them all. He watched the alien vessels grow larger on his screens. He knew what was about to happen. He accepted it. His final transmission was simple. Just 10 words broadcast to every human ship and station in range. Humanity doesn't kneel. We never have. Remember that. Then the quiet harbor entered weapons range and the first battle of the new war began. The quiet harbor lasted 7 minutes. Admiral Han Sol Kim had known it would not be enough, but 7 minutes was longer than he had hoped. His crew fought with desperate courage, firing weapons they barely knew how to use at enemies they did not understand. They damaged 3 alien cruisers before the return fire overwhelmed their shields. In those final seconds, Han Sol saw his bridge burning around him, saw Weapons Officer Choi still firing even as her console exploded, saw Captain Park calmly reading tactical data from ancient files, calling out suggestions until the very end. "Evacuate," Han Sol ordered. "Everyone to the escape pods." "You first, sir?" Choi replied, blood running down her face. "I'm the captain. I go last." Han Sol smiled. It surprised him that he could smile. "That's an old rule too. Now go." They went. Most of them made it to the pods before the ship broke apart. Han Sol stayed on the bridge alone, manually piloting the dying vessel toward the nearest alien ship. If he was going to die, he would make it count. The quiet harbor struck the alien cruiser's hull at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that briefly lit up the darkness of space like a new sun. 3,000 colonists had died on the Morning Hope. Admiral Han Sol Kim died with 200 crew members trying to avenge them. It was not nearly enough, but the explosion was visible from Earth, and the message Han Sol had sent, "Humanity doesn't kneel. We never have. Remember that," spread across human space faster than light. Something changed in that moment. Something that had been sleeping for 2,000 years woke up. On Earth, in her small apartment, a university student named Haewon Park watched the news in shock. She was 19 years old. She wrote poetry. She had never heard anyone in her life. She watched the footage of the quiet harbor making its final charge, and she felt tears on her face. Then she felt something else, something hot and sharp in her chest, anger. By morning, every military recruitment center on Earth had lines around the block. People who had spent their lives as farmers, teachers, artists, and engineers stood in those lines demanding to enlist. They did not know how to fight. They did not know how to kill. But they knew they had to learn. The government tried to calm everyone down. Foreign Minister Moon gave speeches about patience, about diplomacy, about not abandoning 2,000 years of peace because of one incident. He still believed the aliens could be reasoned with. Then the aliens attacked the Titan station orbiting Saturn's moon. 20,000 humans lived on Titan station. It was a research facility, studying the mysteries of Saturn's atmosphere. The aliens wanted it because it had a large population in a small space. Easy harvesting. The people on Titan station did not have warships. They had mining equipment, construction drones, and scientific instruments. They also had 3 hours of warning before the alien fleet arrived. 3 hours was enough. The station's chief engineer was a woman named Mi-sun Yang. She was 49 years old and had spent her career building things. Now she would use her skills to destroy. "Strip every nuclear reactor on the station," she ordered her team. "Rig them as bombs. Turn every mining laser toward the approach vector. Deploy the construction drones and program them for ramming speed." "That'll destroy the station," someone said. "They're going to destroy it anyway," Mi-sun replied. "At least we can make them pay for it." When the alien fleet arrived, Titan station was waiting. The battle was brief and brutal. The aliens won, but they paid a price they had not expected. Nuclear explosions tore through their formation. Mining lasers designed to cut through ice and rock burned through ship hulls. Construction drones, each one carrying explosive charges, smashed into alien vessels like missiles. By the time the aliens took Titan station, they had lost 60% of their assault force. Mi-sun Yang died when the last reactor exploded, but her final transmission reached Earth. Just 4 words delivered with a grin on her face as everything around her burned. "See you in hell." The footage went viral. Humans across 53 colony worlds watched it again and again. They saw Mi-sun smiling as she turned a civilian station into a weapon. They saw her laughing at death. The aliens saw it too. Their commander, War Prime Drecker, watched the transmission in his command chamber. He was confused. In his long career of conquest, he had subjugated 47 different species. They all reacted the same way when faced with superior force. They begged. They surrendered. They tried to bargain for their lives. Humans smiled. On Earth, the government finally accepted reality. Foreign Minister Moon stepped down. His dreams of peace shattered. The global government appointed Fleet Admiral Young Ho Kang as Supreme Commander of all military forces. Kang was 58 years old. He had been retired for a decade, spending his time writing theoretical papers about historical warfare that no one read. Now everyone wanted to read them. His first press conference was short. "We forgot how to fight," he told the cameras. "We didn't forget how to win." He immediately began reorganizing humanity's defenses. Ships designed for exploration were converted to warships. Factories that built homes started building weapons. Research facilities that studied medicine began studying ways to kill. Dr. Bo-Ra Lee, the xenobiologist from the Dandelion Station, volunteered her expertise. She had wanted to understand alien life. Now she would help destroy it. "Their biology is different from ours," she explained to the military scientists. "But that means they have different weaknesses. We can exploit them." One of those scientists was a physicist named Sung-Min Choi. He was 41 years old and had spent his career developing peaceful technologies. Terraforming equipment, agricultural systems, medical devices. Now he looked at all of it with new eyes. "Everything we've built can be weaponized," he told Admiral Kang. "Terraforming lasers can melt ship hulls. Agricultural nanobots can be reprogrammed as viruses. Mining equipment can become artillery. We've been building an arsenal for 2,000 years. We just called it something else." His daughter, Dayun Choi, had survived the destruction of the Quiet Harbor. Her escape pod had been recovered by a patrol ship. She spent 2 weeks in a hospital recovering from her injuries, then immediately volunteered for the new weapons program. "I want to kill them all," she told the recruiters. There was no emotion in her voice. Just cold determination. They accepted her. They accepted everyone who volunteered. Within a month, Earth's military went from a small ceremonial force to an army of millions. Captain Taeyang Park, who had also survived the Quiet Harbor, was promoted to general. His knowledge of historical warfare suddenly made him one of humanity's most valuable assets. He established training academies where he taught tactics from Earth's violent past. "War never changes," he told his students. "The weapons are different. The distances are larger, but the principles remain the same. Attack the enemy's weaknesses. Protect your strengths. And never ever fight fair." The aliens learned this lesson at the Battle of Proxima Station. The Calrathi, that was the name they used for themselves, sent a conquest fleet to Proxima Centauri. They expected an easy victory. The colony there had no military presence, just miners and their families. What the Calrathi found was a trap. Every building in the colony was rigged with explosives. The miners had spent weeks preparing. When the alien landing craft touched down, the ground beneath them erupted. Entire city blocks became bombs. The mines themselves, kilometers deep, had been filled with chemical weapons developed by Dr. Lee's team. The Calrathi soldiers who survived the initial explosions found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see. Humans hiding in tunnels, ambushing supply lines, destroying equipment. The miners fought with tools and improvised weapons. They fought with rocks and bare hands when they ran out of ammunition. It took the Calrathi 3 weeks to secure Proxima. They lost 8,000 soldiers doing it. When they finally succeeded, they found that the colony's population of 50,000 had been evacuated days earlier through hidden tunnels. The whole battle had been pointless. General Mi Sun-Yang, who had survived Titan Station and now commanded all ground forces, watched the reports from Proxima with satisfaction. She had planned that defense. "Let them win every battle," she said, "as long as every victory costs them more than they can afford." Back on Earth, the weapons development continued. Dr. Sung-Min Choi unveiled humanity's new arsenal. Ships that could become invisible to sensors, missiles with artificial intelligence that could hunt targets for weeks, drones that could replicate themselves using enemy ship materials, weapons that bent the rules of physics in ways that peaceful research had discovered but never applied. "We've been preparing for this war for 2,000 years, Sung-Min told Admiral Kang. "We just didn't know it." The weapons worked. When the Calrathi sent another fleet to attack the Mars colonies, humanity was ready. Captain Dayun Choi, now fully recovered and leading a fighter squadron, intercepted them. Her squadron was called the Grinning Devils. They painted smiles on their ships. It was their way of honoring Admiral Han Solo's sacrifice. their way of telling the enemy that humanity was not afraid. Dawen led her squadron in a series of hit-and-run attacks that destroyed 12 Kalrathi cruisers. She lost half her pilots doing it, but she never stopped smiling. The aliens intercepted her communications during one engagement. 6 months into the war, the Kalrathi Empire made a decision. Humanity was proving harder to conquer than expected. Time to send a message. Warfleet Omega assembled at the edge of Kalrathi space. 10,000 warships. The largest military force ever gathered in galactic history. Their target, Earth itself. Fleet Admiral Young-Ho Kang received the intelligence reports while drinking coffee in his command center. He read the numbers, then read them again.
10,000 ships.
His entire defense force numbered 5,000. Simple mathematics said Earth would fall. He smiled anyway. Send a message to all human colonies, he ordered. Tell them what's coming. Tell them we'll hold as long as we can. Then he called his senior officers to a planning meeting. General Taeyang Park arrived first. The old historian looked exhausted. He had been training soldiers nonstop for months. 10,000 ships, Park said quietly. Admiral, we can't win this. I know, Kang replied. So we need to make sure our loss costs them everything. General Mi Sun Yang walked in next. The ground forces commander had circles under her eyes. She had watched too many young soldiers die. She had given too many orders that sent people to their deaths. The asteroid belt, she said without preamble. We turn it into a minefield. Every rock becomes a weapon. That will take months, someone objected. Then we start now, Kang said. What else? Dr. Sung-Min Choi presented his latest weapons. The physicist looked like he had not slept in days. I've developed something new. We're calling it the Starbreaker. It's a missile with an artificial intelligence core that can hunt targets independently for weeks. How many do you have? 3,000. I can make more, but I need time. You have 3 months, Kang told him. They'll be here in 4. The preparations began. Every human in the solar system worked 20-hour days. The asteroid belt became humanity's greatest fortress. Millions of rocks, each one equipped with missiles, railguns, or simple explosive charges. Mars itself was fortified until the entire planet became a weapon. Captain Dayun Choi returned from her deep space raids for the battle. She had become a legend. Her squadron had destroyed over 800 enemy ships. She was 27 years old and had more combat experience than any human alive. They're sending everything they have, Kang told her. This will be the biggest battle in history. Dawen just nodded. She did not smile anymore. Somewhere during the months of constant fighting, she had lost the grin that made her famous. Now she just looked tired. Where do you need me? She asked, leading the fighter defense. You'll have 500 squadrons under your command. That's a lot of pilots who are going to die. Yes, Kang said honestly. It is. While Earth prepared for invasion, something else was happening across the galaxy. Other species had been watching the war. 12 different civilizations that the Kalrathi had conquered centuries ago. They had submitted because resistance seemed impossible. They had accepted slavery because survival seemed more important than freedom. Then they watched humans fight, watched a species that chose war over submission, watched gardeners become warriors, watched people smile as they died rather than kneel. An ambassador arrived at Earth from a species called the Venturi. They looked like large birds with feathered wings and sharp beaks. Their civilization had been conquered 300 years ago. We want to help, the ambassador told Foreign Minister Jae Hwan-moon. The diplomat had resigned after his peace efforts failed, but Kang had convinced him to stay. Someone needed to handle the politics while the military handled the war. You want to rebel against the Kalrathi? Moon asked. We want to be like you, the ambassador replied. We forgot we could fight. You reminded us. Within weeks, 11 more species contacted Earth. They offered intelligence about the Kalrathi Empire, ship designs, tactical data, supply routes, anything that might help humanity survive. They're using us, Park said when he heard. They want us to weaken the Kalrathi so they can break free. I know, Kang replied. But right now I'll take any advantage we can get. The intelligence proved invaluable. Dr. Bo-Ra Lee, who had transformed from peaceful scientist to weapons expert, used Kalrathi biological data to develop new weapons. The silence generator disrupted their neural systems, making them helpless. It was a horrible weapon. It disabled enemies without killing them, leaving them conscious but paralyzed. This violates every ethical standard we have, Dr. Lee said, holding the prototype. Her hands shook. So did destroying the Morning Hope, Kang replied. They chose this war. We're just finishing it. Lee nodded and delivered the weapons to the military. Then she went to her quarters and cried. She still did that sometimes when no one was watching. Cried for the peaceful universe she thought she would discover. Cried for the monsters she and her species had become. But she kept working, because the alternative was extinction. The Calrathi War Fleet Omega crossed into human space exactly 4 months after assembling. War Prime Drecker personally led the invasion. He had studied the humans carefully, had watched their tactics, had learned to respect their ferocity. But 10,000 ships against 5,000. The mathematics were clear. His fleet entered the asteroid belt expecting resistance. What they found exceeded their worst predictions. Every rock exploded or fired or rammed into their ships. Automated railguns hidden on asteroids fired continuously. Missiles launched from positions the Calrathi could not detect. The Starbreaker weapons were especially devastating. These AI-guided missiles hunted Calrathi command ships specifically, learning and adapting with each attack. They could not be jammed or confused. They simply hunted until they killed. Drecker lost 2,000 ships in the asteroid belt. 2,000 ships for a field of rocks. The mathematics no longer looked so favorable. Then they reached Mars. General Mi Sun-Yang commanded the Mars defense personally. She had turned the entire planet into a fortress. Every canyon held artillery. Every crater concealed missile batteries. The orbital stations were bombs waiting to detonate, and on the surface 1 million human soldiers waited in underground bunkers. The Calrathi had numbers. Humanity had preparation and fury. The battle lasted 72 hours without pause. Ships exploded every second. Debris filled the space around Mars until it looked like a metal fog. Calrathi landing craft tried to reach the surface. Most were destroyed in atmosphere. Those that landed faced General Yang's Reaper brigades. These were soldiers trained specifically for close combat. They boarded Calrathi ships through hull breaches. They fought with rifles, blades, and bare hands when ammunition ran out. The Calrathi learned that humans were terrifying in close quarters. Captain Dayun led the fighter defense. 500 squadrons, each one operating independently. They swarmed the enemy fleet like angry insects. Too many to track, too fast to target effectively. During the second day of battle, she found herself facing War Prime Drecker's personal flagship. Her squadron was down to 12 fighters. His ship had full shields and weapons. "Grinning devils, form on me," she ordered. "We're taking that command ship." "Captain, that's suicide," someone replied. "Then we die smiling," Daun said. And she did smile finally. One last time before the end, her squadron attacked. Drecker's gunners shot down 11 of them. Only Daun made it through. Her fighter was damaged, weapons empty, shields failing. She did the only thing left. She rammed his flagship at full speed. The impact drove her fighter deep into the Calrathi vessel's hull. Emergency systems should have killed her, should have vaporized her in the crash, but her ejection seat fired at exactly the right moment, and her momentum carried her into the enemy ship's interior. She survived. Somehow. Broken bones, concussion, bleeding from wounds she could not even locate, but alive. Calrathi soldiers found her in the wreckage. They should have killed her immediately, but Drecker ordered her taken alive. He wanted to meet this human who smiled at death. Meanwhile, the battle continued. Admiral Kang directed the defense from his command center on Earth. He watched the numbers drop. Watched his ships die one by one. Watched Mars become a graveyard. But the Calrathi were dying too, in greater numbers than they had ever imagined possible. By the end of the third day, Warfleet Omega had lost 9,000 ships. 90% casualties. They had won. Mars orbit belonged to them. But at a cost that made victory meaningless. Humanity had lost 61% of its defense forces. 300,000 dead. Mars itself was ruined, its surface scarred by weapons fire. The asteroid belt no longer existed as a coherent structure, just debris. But Earth still stood, and the Calrathi no longer had an invasion fleet. In his command chamber, Drecker looked at the human prisoner. Captain Dayun Choi stood before him, injured and exhausted. She should have been terrified. She should have begged for her life. She smiled at him instead. "You're insane," Drecker said. "Your entire species is insane." "Maybe," Daun replied. "But we're still here. You lost. Mars is ours. You lost 9,000 ships for one planet. How many planets do we have? How long can you afford victories like this?" Drecker had no answer. He had conquered 47 species across his career. None of them had ever made him doubt himself before. But these humans, with their grins and their impossible courage, had shown him something he had never considered. Maybe the Kalrathi were not invincible. "I could kill you now," he said. The war entered its second year and humanity was losing, not in spirit, not in courage, but in simple mathematics. The Kalrathi Empire controlled 50,000 worlds. Humanity held 53 colonies plus Earth. The enemy could afford to lose 10,000 ships at Mars. They had millions more. Fleet Admiral Young-Ho Kang stood in his command center, staring at the tactical displays. Red markers showed Kalrathi fleets. Blue markers showed human forces. There was a lot more red than blue. "We can't win a war of attrition," General Taeyang Park said. The old historian looked even older now. His hair had gone completely white during the past year. "They'll grind us down eventually." "Then we change the strategy," Kang replied. "We can't fight their empire, so we cut off the head." Park looked up sharply. "You want to attack their throne world?" "Kalthrak Prime, 20,000 light-years from here, through hostile territory." Kang pulled up a star chart. "It will take at least 3 years to get there. Maybe longer. We'll have to fight the entire way. That's impossible. Everything we've done has been impossible." Kang smiled. "That's never stopped us before." The plan was presented to the human government. Many opposed it. It meant leaving Earth's defenses weakened. It meant risking the entire military on a desperate gamble, but it also meant hope. A chance to end the war instead of slowly losing it. The vote passed. Humanity would go on the offensive. The allied species that had been secretly helping Earth learned of the plan. They sent ambassadors led by the Ventari diplomat who had first made contact. "You're going to attack Kalthrak Prime?" the ambassador asked in disbelief. "Yes," Kang replied, "then we're coming with you. All of us." Within months, 12 species openly declared rebellion against the Kalrathi Empire. Ships, soldiers, and supplies poured in from across the galaxy. Species that had lived in slavery for centuries suddenly remembered how to fight. Humanity had reminded them. The combined fleet assembled at Earth. 8,000 human ships, 4,000 allied vessels. It was the largest army humanity had ever commanded. It was still tiny compared to the Kalrathi Empire's full military might, but it would have to be enough. Before the fleet departed, there was a ceremony. Captain Daewon Choi had been rescued in a prisoner exchange. War Prime Drecker himself had negotiated it. The Kalrathi commander had developed a strange respect for the human captain. He had returned her with full honors. Now she stood before Admiral Kang, receiving command of all fighter wings for the expedition. She was 28 years old. She had personally destroyed over 1,000 enemy ships, and she still smiled, though the smile was different now. Harder. Colder. "The mission is 3 years minimum," Kang told her. "We might not make it home." "I stopped thinking about home a year ago," Daewon replied. "Now there's just the mission." General Mi Sun-yang took command of ground forces. Her Reaper brigades had proven themselves at Mars. They would be needed for the boarding actions that the long journey would require. Dr. Bo-Ra Lee and Dr. Sung-Min Choi continued their weapons development. They would work during the journey creating new weapons from captured enemy technology. The war had turned them from scientists into something darker. They accepted it because they had to. The fleet prepared to depart. On Earth, people gathered to watch the ships leave orbit. Haewon Park, the war journalist, broadcast the moment live. "Today humanity stops defending," she said to the cameras. "Today we attack. We're going to the heart of the Kalrathi Empire, and we're either going to win this war or die trying." The ships jumped into slipspace one by one, disappearing in flashes of light. 12,000 vessels carrying 3 million soldiers. The largest offensive in human history. Earth watched them go, then turned back to preparing defenses. Because the Kalrathi would not ignore this. They would strike back. The long march began. The first year was brutal. The combined fleet fought its way through 40 star systems. Each one was defended. Each one cost lives. Thousands of ships were lost. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers died, but they kept moving forward. Captain Daewon led her fighters in over 200 engagements. She developed new tactics mixing human unpredictability with alien knowledge. Her squadrons became legendary across the galaxy. The Kalrathi began calling her fleet the Smiling Death. General Yang's Reaper brigades boarded 30 Kalrathi fortresses. Close quarters combat in zero gravity. Fighting with blades when ammunition ran out. Fighting with bare hands when blades broke. The Kalrathi learned to fear boarding actions. Learned that humans were monsters in confined spaces. Admiral Kang commanded from his flagship, making decisions that killed thousands. Each choice weighed on him. Each loss added to the guilt he carried. But he kept going because stopping meant all those deaths were meaningless. During the journey, strange bonds formed. Humans fought alongside species they had never met before the war. Shared food, shared stories, shared the fear of dying far from home. The Ventari pilots taught humans their aerial maneuvers. Humans taught them aggressive tactics. A species called the Rocktar, massive beings made of living stone, joined Yang's Reaper brigades. They could survive in vacuum without suits. They became humanity's shock troops. Another species, the Whisperers, were telepathic. They helped coordinate fleet movements by sharing information instantly. Humans found them unsettling but invaluable. 12 species, all fighting together, all learning from each other. All united by one thing: hatred of the Kalrathi Empire. Back on Earth, the Kalrathi struck. A fleet of 30,000 ships appeared in the solar system. Not to invade, to exterminate. The defense forces were undermanned. Most of the military had left with Kang's fleet. Only 2,000 ships remained to defend Earth, commanded by Admiral Ji-hoon Park, General Park's son. The young admiral was 31 years old. He had learned warfare from his father's teachings. Now he would put those lessons to the ultimate test. "We can't win this fight," his second-in-command said. "Then we make them pay for every meter," Ji-hoon replied. "My father taught me something. In war, sometimes losing slowly is the same as winning." He implemented his father's tactics, made the entire solar system a weapon. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid. Mercury became a giant solar reflector, focusing the sun's energy into a weapon. Venus produced chemical weapons in its hostile atmosphere. Earth's moon was covered in railguns, and Earth itself became the final fortress. 2 billion soldiers prepared for ground invasion. They would make the Kalrathi bleed for every city, every street, every building. The battle lasted 3 months. The Kalrathi slowly advanced through the solar system, paying horrific costs. They lost 15,000 ships to Earth's defenses, but they kept coming. Admiral Ji-hoon Park died in the final battle for Earth's orbit. His last message to his father, sent through slip space communications: "I held the line as long as I could. Finish the mission. Make it mean something." Earth survived barely. The Kalrathi fleet retreated after losing half their force. They had failed to exterminate humanity, but the cost was devastating. Earth's defenses were shattered. Billions dead. The planet itself scarred by orbital bombardment. The news reached Admiral Kang's fleet 2 weeks later. He read his son's final message alone in his quarters, allowed himself 1 hour to grieve. Then he returned to the bridge. "Continue the mission," he ordered. His voice was empty. "We're not stopping." The long march continued. The second year saw fewer battles but harder ones. The Kalrathi had reinforced their defenses. Every star system was a fortress now. Progress slowed to a crawl. Dr. Lee made a breakthrough. She had been studying Kalrathi biology for 2 years. Finally found a weakness in their neural structure. Developed a weapon that could disrupt their communications. Not lethal, but devastating to their coordination. "Deploy it at the next major battle," Kang ordered. The Battle of Meridian Cluster became a turning point. The human allied fleet attacked a major Kalrathi fortress. Used Dr. Lee's neural disruptor. The enemy fleet immediately lost coordination. Ships fired on each other. Commanders could not issue orders. The allied fleet destroyed 5,000 enemy ships for minimal losses. It was humanity's first decisive victory. Captain Da-yoon led the fighter assault personally. She had changed over the 2 years of constant warfare. Her smile was gone completely now. She fought with cold efficiency. Her pilots worried about her, but she just kept flying, kept killing, kept moving forward. General Yang's Reaper brigades captured the Meridian stations. Secured valuable intelligence. Learned that the Kalrathi Empress was preparing a final defense at Kalthrak Prime, gathering every available ship. "They know we're coming," Park said, previewing the intelligence. "Good," Kang replied. "Let them gather their forces in one place. Easier to destroy them all at once." But the intelligence also revealed something else. The Kalrathi Empress, Valkna, was more than a military leader. She was a religious figure. Her people believed she was immortal, believed she could not be defeated. That's the key, Park said. We don't just have to defeat them militarily. We have to break their faith. Plans were made, not just for battle, but for psychological warfare. Humanity would show the galaxy what the Calrathi truly were, show their conquered species that rebellion was possible. Haywan Park, who had stayed on Earth during the invasion, began broadcasting. She showed the galaxy what Earth had endured. Calthrak Prime appeared on the long-range sensors like a jewel in the darkness, the throne world of the Calrathi Empire, home to 20 billion beings, protected by 80,000 warships fleet. Admiral Young Ho Kang's fleet numbered 4,000. Ships. Those are impossible odds, someone said on the bridge. We've been fighting impossible odds for 3 years, Kang replied. One more time. The fleet dropped out of slip space at the edge of the system. Immediately, alarms sounded. The Calrathi had been waiting. Their defensive fleet moved to intercept. Captain Da-Yun launched her fighters first. 2,000 small craft against an armada. Her squadron, the Grinning Devils, led the assault. She had not smiled in 2 years, but her ships still wore the painted grins, a reminder of what humanity had been, what they could be again, if they survived. The space battle began with a coordinated attack from all allied species. The Ventari ships, fast and maneuverable, drew enemy fire. The Roktar battleships, nearly indestructible, pushed through the defensive lines. The Whisperers coordinated everything telepathically, allowing instant communication across the fleet. And humans did what humans did best. They fought with unpredictable fury. Dr. Bora Lee's neural disruptor activated. Across the Calrathi fleet, communications failed. Ships lost coordination. Admiral Kang exploited the chaos immediately, driving wedges through their formation. But 80,000 ships was still 80,000 ships. The Allied fleet was being destroyed, slowly, but inevitably. On the surface of Calthrak Prime, Empress Valkna watched the battle from her throne room. She was ancient, nearly 400 years old. She had ruled the Empire for 3 centuries, had conquered 47 species, had never known defeat. She watched the human fleet dying and felt nothing. These creatures had been troublesome, had inspired rebellion across her empire, but in the end, numbers always won. Always. Then her communications officer brought her a message. Empress, the human commander, is requesting single combat. Ancient tradition. Champion versus champion. Winner takes all. Valkna laughed. It had been decades since anyone had invoked that tradition. It was considered primitive now. But the human commander was challenging her authority. Suggesting she was afraid. Tell him I accept, she said. Let him come to the surface. Let him die with honor. The message reached Admiral Kang. His officers protested immediately. Sir, you can't. She's been genetically enhanced for combat. She's 400 years old. She has centuries of experience. I know, Kang replied. He was 58 years old. He had started this war as a retired theoretical officer. Now he was going to end it in single combat with an empress. Someone younger should go. Someone stronger, General Yang said. She had tears in her eyes. She knew what he was doing. It has to be me, Kang said. I'm the commander. I'm the symbol. If I die, I become a martyr. If I win, I break their faith. Either way, the empire falls. He looked at his senior officers, at General Park, who had become a close friend, at Captain Da-Yun, who had lost her smile but never her courage, at Dr. Lee, who had sacrificed her principles to build weapons, at all the humans and aliens who had followed him for 3 impossible years. Continue the battle, he ordered. Whatever happens to me, finish the mission. He took a shuttle down to the surface alone. The Calrathi gave him safe passage as tradition demanded. He landed in the throne room's courtyard. Thousands of Calrathi watched from above. Empress Valkna met him in the center. She was tall, nearly 3 meters. Her body was covered in armored scales. Her hands ended in claws that could cut through steel. She had been designed for war. Kang was just a human, growing old, tired, carrying 3 years of guilt for every order that killed his soldiers. You are brave to come here, Valkna said, but bravery won't save you. Neither will armor save you, Kang replied. He drew a simple blade, human-made, nothing fancy, just sharp metal. The combat began. Valkna was faster, stronger. Her first strike would have killed most beings. Kang dodged barely. Her claws tore through his uniform, drawing blood. He struck back. His blade hit her armor and bounced off. She laughed, but Kang kept fighting. Not to win. He knew he could not win physically. But he could speak, could make her doubt. "You rule 50,000 worlds," he said, dodging another attack. "How many want to be free?" "All slaves wish for freedom." "That changes nothing. It changes everything." Kang blocked a strike, felt his arm break from the impact. "You've seen the rebellions. 12 species openly fighting, hundreds more in secret. We showed them they can resist, and I will crush them all, starting with you." Her next strike drove Kang to his knees. Blood ran down his face. His blade fell from his broken hand. The fight was over. Valkna raised her claws for the killing blow. "Do it," Kang said. "Make me a martyr. Let every species in your empire see you kill an old human in single combat. Let them remember that we fought you for 3 years and died standing. See how long your empire lasts after that." Valkna paused. For the first time in centuries, she hesitated. Because he was right, she could kill him, could crush his fleet, could maintain control through force. But the humans had changed something fundamental. They had shown the galaxy that the Kalrathi could be resisted, could be hurt, could be beaten. Every death would inspire more rebellion. Every victory would cost more than she could afford. The empire was fracturing, not from external attack but from internal collapse. And this old human bleeding at her feet had orchestrated it all. "You cannot win militarily," Kang continued. "You have the numbers. But we have something you'll never understand. We have hope. We have the belief that some things are worth dying for. Freedom, dignity, the right to exist without kneeling. Kill me and a billion humans will remember why they fight. Let me live and maybe we can stop this." Valkna looked at her claws, looked at the human, looked at the thousands of her people watching. She lowered her hands. "What are you offering?" she asked quietly. "Peace, real peace. Disarm your fleets. Grant independence to your conquered species. Face justice for the harvesting. We'll help rebuild, help create a galaxy where all species can coexist. And if I refuse, then we all die here. Your fleet destroys mine, but Earth will send another. And another. Humanity will fight you for 1,000 years if necessary. We have nothing left to lose." Valkna stood in silence. Her empire was 400 years old. Her rule had been absolute. But empires ended, all of them eventually. "I accept," she said finally. The words echoed across the courtyard, across the planet, across the galaxy through broadcasts that reached every species. The Kalrathi Empress had surrendered. The space battle stopped immediately. Ships on both sides ceased fire, confused by the sudden armistice. Captain Daun held her fire, waiting for confirmation. It came through on all channels. "Hostilities have ceased. Repeat, hostilities have ceased. The war is over. Over. After 3 years of blood and death and loss. Over." Daun sat in her fighter's cockpit and felt nothing. She had expected to die today, had expected to keep fighting until her ship was destroyed. Now there was just silence. She tried to smile, tried to remember what that felt like. Couldn't. On Earth, the news arrived 12 hours later. The damaged planet received the transmission. The war was over. Humanity had won. People gathered in the streets. They cried. They celebrated. They mourned the billions who had died and would never see this day. Admiral Ji-hoon Park's sacrifice had not been in vain. His father had finished the mission. The negotiations took months. Empress Valkna abdicated her throne. The Kalrathi Empire was dissolved into a confederation of independent worlds. War crimes tribunals were established. The species that had been harvested received reparations. Humanity became the de facto peacekeepers of the galaxy. Not because they wanted power, but because every species remembered what humans had done, remembered that they had fought an empire and won. The fleet returned home 2 years after the victory. 4,000 ships had left. 800 returned. 3 million soldiers departed. 400,000 survived. Admiral Kang stepped off his flagship onto Earth. The planet was still scarred from the invasion. The defenses were rebuilt, but the cities showed their damage. The gardens were returning, but it would take generations to fully heal. He was met by dignitaries, by cameras, by people who called him a hero. He felt like a murderer. Every soldier he had sent to their death haunted him. General Park reunited with his surviving family. His son was dead, but his grandchildren had survived. He held them and wept. Captain Daun received more medals, more honors. She accepted them with empty eyes. She had killed thousands, had watched thousands more die. The medals meant nothing. Dr. Lee and Dr. Sung Min returned to their laboratories, but they could not return to peaceful research. They had created too many weapons, had sacrificed too much of their ethics. They tried to rebuild their lives and found only guilt. General Yang oversaw the demilitarization efforts, helped the Kalrathi transition to a peaceful society. It was strange work, teaching former enemies how to coexist, teaching them what humanity had learned 2,000 years ago. Some things were worth more than winning. 5 years after the war ended, Earth completed its memorial, a massive structure that listed every human who had died. 3 billion names. It took a full day to read them all aloud.